This is RiverTalks with Jonathan Brush, President and CEO of Unbound.
One of the questions you're going to face again and again in life is how long you should stay someplace. This gets asked in all kinds of different ways. How long should I stay in this job? How long should I stay in this position? How long should I work for this company? How long should I live in this house? How long should I live in this neighborhood, in this state? How long should I attend this church? How long should I be where I am doing what I'm doing? And it's interesting to me that the typical answer in our current cultural and social setting is almost always measured in terms of finances and in terms of money. You will stay in a job until you get a better job offer someplace else. You'll stay in a job until there's no place to get promoted anymore. You'll stay in a neighborhood or you live in a certain place until you get a better job offer someplace else and a better opportunity that has you moving up and inevitably moving out. That's not always wrong. There's certainly nothing wrong with bettering your position, getting a new job and getting paid more or being able to accept new challenges. And certainly there's all kinds of really fantastic reasons to move to a bigger house with more space, to a better neighborhood, to a more desirable location, and to a place that has better opportunities. But I want to suggest that there may be a different way to consider this question and to look at it. And I want to say that instead of measuring it by opportunity, the question is how long should I stay in one place should be measured by how long does it take you to figure out what you can get away with? Now, if that sounds sort of strangely rebellious or certainly unorthodox, let me explain a little bit. When I say stay someplace long enough to know what you can get away with, there's a measure of relational capital there that we're trying to gauge and that we're trying to understand. Here's the reality. There are rules in any place. There are workplace rules. There are rules for society. There are certainly laws. And just to be clear, I'm not in any way advocating breaking laws or even really breaking rules. But the reality is that the rules are never enough. The rules are never enough to govern all the pieces of behavior that happen in interactions between people. There's going to be circumstances that require setting aside the rules or not fully enforcing the rules. And if you don't believe me, think about something as ironclad as the speed limit. So there's a speed limit, and there are law enforcement officers whose job it is to enforce the speed limit. And yet we tend to think that they're better law enforcement officers if they exercise some discretion on how they enforce that. Certainly if it comes to us, somebody who comes blasting through a stretch of highway doing 110 miles per hour, clearly endangering everybody around him who's done it multiple times before, we want the book thrown to that person. But somebody who comes down the same stretch of highway driving 110 miles per hour because they got a kid who can't breathe in the back seat and they're trying to get to the hospital, we don't necessarily want the rules to apply there. Somebody who's getting a speeding ticket because they're driving recklessly and stupidly, and they've done it multiple times before, we want them to pay the ticket. But when it's your son or daughter or you yourself, and you've never got a ticket in your entire life, and they just changed that 55 zone to a 45 zone, and you forgot about it because you were thinking about something else, well, then you're not as interested in the officer following the letter of the law. And honestly, a good officer will be smart about not following the letter of the law. A good officer will know when a warning might be the best thing to help a person not break the rules in the future, when it's necessary to not enforce the law because it'd be better for that person. In other words, they know the situation well enough to know when they can stray from the, typical set of rules. They know what they can get away with. That's true in all kinds of situations. When you work in a company long enough, you start to recognize what are the unspoken rules. What are the things that are there to make sure that HR has a plan for in case somebody does something egregious? But in reality, nobody's really going to enforce that, nor do they necessarily need to. And if they did, the whole company wouldn't work very well. What are the rules in your neighborhood? How do you know what you can get away with there? What are the rules in your county? Every county has a bunch of really ticky-tack rules in the books that are necessary to make a county run, but in some cases have to be sort of not disregarded. Again, I'm not suggesting that you break the law, but thought about or applied judiciously or given some leniency or some grace, depending on the situation. When you live in a place long enough to understand what those things are, when you build relationships with people to understand what you can get away with, and let's think about this from a personal relationship standpoint. There are features, characteristics, things about people that society would say are highly inappropriate to joke about or even in some cases observe. And that's true. And that's a good thing. We don't want people going around commenting on somebody's physical appearances, things like that. But especially if you're a guy, right? There's got to be some circumstances when you're hanging out with the boys, when those kind of physical characteristics are the things that make for great jokes. And those jokes are things that bond people together and they make them laugh. And the person that you're making the joke at his expense is going to laugh along with everybody else. But you don't come into a group and do that. You don't come into a group and call the big guy Fat Mike. It's only after you've been in the group for a while and you understand the dynamics and you understand what's going on that you might be able to get away with making some sort of comment about his weight or the fact that he is too skinny or whatever it is. In other words, there's a depth of relationship that allows you to know when the kind of standard rules can be suspended. And when that happens, when there's a chance to go a little deeper, to know somebody a little better. And so I would suggest that there's an opportunity for us as well, that you should stay wherever you are long enough till you learn what you can get away with. And when you learn what you can get away with, that's often the time when things get really interesting. When you understand the people well enough and deep enough, and you have a relationship with them that is strong enough that you can actually accomplish a lot more together. You can know each other a lot better. And ultimately, life typically becomes a lot more satisfying.